Thank you. A couple of parish notices. I'm carrying the fan. What you do to a menopausal woman is you stick her in a great big glass box with loads of people. So this starts buzzing. It's nothing strange, just to lay that out there. Second sort of announcement is I'm following professors who've talked about really smart stuff as part of a SMPTE track. So if you're expecting more of that, I'm sorry to disappoint. This is going to be much more tabloid. I am not an engineer or a computer scientist, but I get to work with some absolutely bloody brilliant people, quite a few of whom are here today. So hold that thought. If there's anything difficult on the Slido, and I'm looking at you guys in the front, they'll be heading your way. So what we're going to do, it's a big title and it's a big subject, and obviously I could have talked about almost anything. Stick the fan down. But what I'm going to attempt to do is sort of contextualise emerging technologies within the BBC, and in doing so, hopefully represent things that will be well known to lots of colleagues in the room and lots of suppliers and everybody else. So today's session is about the future of broadcast infrastructure and how we are using emergent technologies to power transformation. And as I say, sharing the approach as the BBC and kind of hopefully resonating with everything else. So as broadcasters, we're absolutely committed to meeting audiences where they are and ensuring that we leave no one behind as we transition into an IP consumption future. But as technology leaders, the economics continue to be challenging. We still need to deliver for our vast television and radio audiences, whilst also supporting their transition. It's not as simple as either or, it's both. We need to make careful choices to balance risk and innovation, protecting the core as the foundational technology and simplifying and standardising the estate in order to drive agility. And we'll be doing that for many years to come, certainly into the next decade at least. So we're treading this really careful balance. On the one hand, supporting today's audiences and our current, and as you know, enormous and diverse set of audience-facing propositions. Just in news, and sorry if this is a bit of a patter, we're delivering to more than 60 types of output to the audience, from Newsround to Newsbeat to Newscast, to the world's busiest news website and to the Today programme, to World Service, to Panorama, to local radio stations across 36 locations in English, in Gaelic news in Scotland, and the news for S4C, and I could keep going on, but you sort of get, I'm sure that's very recognisable, Dave. You know, it's a really, really complicated thing. So supporting all of that, but also investing in high-value content and our digital products to meet the needs of tomorrow's audiences. We're also providing operational excellence and stability so that our technology platform and systems just work, so that creative people don't need to worry about that stuff. And at the same time as doing that, we're reducing our estate by simplifying and standardising. You'll hear that a lot from us, and finding efficiency everywhere we can. And it's all of this so that we can create the conditions for the BBC to transform its output over the next 5 years, setting us up as the world's leading digital public service organisation into the 2030s. So, and this is a build, let's hope we don't overshoot. Anyone that knows me knows I hate a build, but there it is. For us, and I'm sure for all other big media organisations, everything starts with the strategy. The BBC has transformed itself in recent years in order to remain at the heart of audiences' daily lives and to offer outstanding value for all. But if we're to deliver a BBC for the future that is universally used, more relevant, and even better value, we need to rapidly accelerate the transformation that's underway. And just as a reminder, and I know you've seen this before, but it does evolve, at the core of the Value for All strategy, we have pursuing truth with no agenda, and that's about reporting fairly and fearlessly. We back the best homegrown storytelling by investing in British talent and creativity, and we really bring people together, connecting everyone to unmissable content, live, archive, and everything else. So our role in technology comes in enabling that strategy. And it's framed by two big thoughts. How do we deliver more content to more audiences on more platforms? And how do we deliver the best possible employee experience? So, let's arrow down. You may have seen this before, and we talk about it as a strategy, but what you can see is it's a set of choices. And I'm sorry, the screens are quite small here, so at the back you may need to come up and have a look or have a browse later. But our strategy helps us to codify the architecture and investments that we make in service of the BBC strategy. It's a description of how we'll build the BBC platform, not the audience outcomes we're seeking. But it's really purposeful in setting things out like our cloud direction. So for me, and we could choose many, the key emerging technologies. Now, I'd like you to suspend your imagination for a moment here, because the three things I'm about to name are not in any way emerging. They're at different states of maturity. But the three things for us really are cloud, SaaS, and I mean real SaaS, and AI, because of course I have to mention AI. That's the law at these sorts of things. And you'll note we're not opinionated about standards in our technology strategy, except that we call out that we want things to be interoperable. Now, I remember first week of being in public service and going to our brilliant architects and saying, can't we just pick a couple? Can we just pick like 3 or 4 standards and be done? And apparently that's not the thing to do. But we are big and complex. We are opinionated about standards, but at the end of the day, we just need things to talk to each other. So, and you know, on top of that, if we picked X over Y, it would be very difficult for us to do things like build a whole new building for the whole of the BBC in one standard and make everything speak to each other. So we've chosen to work incrementally on that. Moving on to cloud. What we can uplift into the cloud and web tech, we are. And despite running more than 100 on-prem environments, we're seriously cloudy. And I've spoken about this a lot. 3,500 services running on EC2, same running as Lambdas. 1 copy of our archive is already in the cloud. That's all 32 petabytes of it. And the security copy will be in by the end of the year, all things being well. In terms of SaaS, finally, we're finding some really exciting SaaS products are becoming available. And these will help us transform our edit capabilities and news production workflows, in particular, amongst other things. But there's still so much more for the industry to do to help us. Are you really offering services in the software as a service piece, or are you just seeking recurring revenues? Because don't underestimate the struggle we've got in rewiring our business and finance for OPEX. For years, we bought equipment and sweated it until it was dead. And actually, we're really bloody good at doing that, so I'm not apologising for the fact that we have great craft in doing these things. And it's helped us to manage our way through capital shocks. But now we're having to make some difficult decisions and have some difficult conversations about moving more to OPEX. And we need to see the upside. TCOs that make sense in the long term, transactional pricing, agility, and the opportunity to consume modern, developed solutions frictionlessly. And finally, as I mentioned, because it's an industry speech, we have to talk about AI. And what we're really interested in my part of the world, certainly, is where AI is coming into our tools, and particularly what that means to our managed tool sets. As the BBC, we see Gen AI as an opportunity to provide value for audiences and for our staff. But we're absolutely alert to the challenges that will come with it, such as ensuring that our output remains impartial, truthful, and accurate at all times. And our principles are simple: to always act in the best interests of the public, to always prioritise talent and creativity, and to always be open and transparent with audiences where we use AI to support content making. Over the last year, we've piloted a range of ideas, from adding subtitles to programmes on BBC Sounds, to speeding up the creation of live text commentaries for Football League on the BBC Sport app, and improving the quality and range of our translations. In my part of the world, we're navigating, providing the latest and most creative tools for our staff, introducing AI, and managing our media supply chain, seeking efficiency, making things interoperable, simplifying and standardising. There it is again. We want to provide the best tools, but we also need to run a complex and massive organisation as efficiently and safely as we can. We have to resolve this tension, and it's a key priority for the team over the next year. We can't be led by the hype and the press releases. We won't be able to adopt an AI tool or your favourite AI tool just because it says AI on the box. The tool has to be up to the job of being part of our managed tool set. And AI then provides the rocket boosters. Our tool set has to work together, has to be managed, has to be owned, and has to be safe and sustainable and affordable at scale. Any other route will be chaos. So, we've talked about the BBC strategy, and we've talked about the technology strategy. So what does all this mean in reality? So this is an illustration of our aiming point for 2027, aptly named Target 27. See what we did there? So working from our tech choices and extrapolating these as to how we want the BBC estate to be by 27. It's exactly what you'd expect it to be. It's cloudy, it's consolidated, it has secure foundations, and it drives automation. So just some examples, and they're sort of outlined there. Sorry, binoculars at the back. By 27, we want our staff to be able to do a full day's work on the internet. We want to maximise the investment we've already made in on-prem post-production. We want to drive our on-prem news estate down to the very smallest it can be. And in all things, we want to drive a standard media supply chain, bringing things like, and I can see my brilliant colleagues in the front, our commissioning, scheduling, production paperwork flows together. Doing that for telly and audio. We're going to do it, Zoe. Stick with us. We're going to get there. One way to get long form into the BBC. Cloud-driven, monitored and observable. And there's tons of tooling in there that does that. Our colleagues in archives, one BBC library is going live, which is just brilliant. That's archiving on acquisition, bringing workloads to media, getting rid of tape robots, doing all that great stuff that digitisation does in order to help us get more content to more audiences in a very digital first way. And securing our foundational infrastructure for the long term. So that's about having settled positions out into 2030 or beyond and giving us something really to build on. So that's lovely, Sinead. What have you done? Well, I've done lovely things like write slides. The brilliant people I can see in the room have actually delivered loads of this. So it's not just talk. The great thing about Target 27 as a vision, as a sort of target point, is that a lot of it already exists. Some of it's in labs, some of it's just edging out into production, but absolutely none of it is vaporware. So we have things like platform control and Observatron. I have to say that's one of my favourite things ever, both in daily use. So platform control launched in April. It allows us to, at a really granular detail, monitor all of our streams, the number of viewers, any incidents. It really supercharges some of that incident resolution. And Observatron allows us to monitor our workflow so we can actually see what's going through and where we can get some really rich data about performance and velocity and all that good stuff. In terms of our graphics and automation approach, heavy on the HTML5, it powered the digital output for the elections last year, the international output for the US elections, and the main BBC One show for the UK elections earlier this month. And this year will revolutionise our lower thirds by using this, starting the long haul now, ahead of the US midterms and the next UK elections. So tons of stuff going on in graphics and automations. And we've cut a show using remote post-production. It's not the only one, but it is called The Golden Toilet, and it did go out but 8 o'clock on BBC is brilliant. So something that actually proved that from outside of the building, we could produce at the same quality using our on-premise estate. So that's a massive game changer for us. Obviously, this is all of the tech. There's a lot of work for us to do in terms of how we operationalise this sort of estate, but at least the capability is there. We're working really, really hard to bring the craft and production communities along with us when it comes to things like Cloud Jupyter and browser-based editing. And this starts in news. Very good. I'm getting my sign. And we've already had output cut for BBC South Today on the television. Unremarked, business as usual. So a brand new tool set that we obviously want to be part of our standard media supply chain, fewer, more interoperable, but something that we set a target out and we've actually delivered. Connected news gathering is on air every day. Our next generation is just finished its Coachworks and it will be on the road soon. And as I say, we have a beta of BBC Library Search in front of users in the coming weeks. And Stream Factory, which is a really big deal for us in this transition to streaming, our signal routing in the cloud, goes live this week. And we start to shift our simulcast workloads onto it. We've still got loads to develop, and we fully expect a TAMS implementation in the autumn, which is from our R&D colleagues, Time Addressable Media Store, with a lot of work going on with vendors here today on how we integrate more MCR-style functionality into it. Indeed, quite a lot of IBC accelerators on various of the subjects here. Target 27, look, it's a bit of wayfinding, but it really focuses us on what's achievable in the next few years. Where do we think it's going? Each part is not revolutionary, but I think you'll see as part of our big strategy, tech strategy, fewer, more interoperable, really supercharging our media supply chain into a streaming and digital future. These are really exciting parts of the tool set that will help get us there. So, in summary, our technology transformation is underway. We are going like the clappers now. It has been as much about organisational shift in terms of breaking down what was a technology federation within the BBC and focusing everyone into how we get to fewer, more interoperable solutions. Simplify, standardise, automate. And the technologies that are helping there, amongst other things, are really looking at how does cloud, how does SaaS, and how does AI help us on that journey. That's it.
Questions. I was negligent in not talking about Slido at the top. So, yeah, hashtag MTS 2025 and Find the Media Technology Conference pull down. Do you want to give me a microphone? Whilst people find that, we talked just before about a possible question to do with skills. So you're transforming the organisation, you're moving the organisation to OPEX first and not sweating the assets any longer necessarily. How do you take your staff with you and how do you bring new staff in, I guess?
So it's not necessarily OPEX first, it's OPEX as part of the mix where there are good SaaS solutions. And I guess just to qualify that, we mean with infrastructure. We don't mean it's a bit of a thin layer, we're getting rid of your perpetual licenses, we're going to charge you more money. That sort of stuff, not very appealing. I think you've heard me talk about that before. I guess skills-wise for us, look, we absolutely need the craft skills that exist in our technology universe. And you know, there are lots of attractive things happening in the world in terms of opportunity for software developments and our product colleagues and all the rest of it. But there is also room for us to think about how do we develop pipelines of people who can sit in a playout suite or do transmission or sit in a gallery. And I am mindful that as an industry, we need to cherish our architects, our solutions people, our crafts people in terms of media operations and tech operations, and ensure that there's a pipeline for those folk. And many of you know, I'm really keen on things like Rise Academy. I can see Mr. Quested at the back, Teen Tech, and Rise Academy. Andy taught my daughter how to put out some radio when we were up in Salford last year, and that was just brilliant. As a 12-year-old doing something that exciting, and young Zoe looked after her. More of that, please. You know, where are we getting those arguably diminishing skills now? How do we all attend to it? And even within the BBC, I did a brilliant day a couple of weeks ago that was Girls in ICT. And of course, I'm going to shout out for the diversity in the room. But pipeline skills, I think, is something that's fairly urgent for all of us.
Splendid, thank you. Well, I can't see any new questions coming through on the Slido.
I think you can put your hands up, might be okay if
Would
it's
you
not
like to
too
do that, as long
contentious.
as you're kind to Sinead? Any questions?
If not, I'll hang around for a few minutes. It might be easier to do in person. Oh, I think it's coming in from a different place.
Yeah. There's a question at the back here.
Ah.
Excuse me.
Actually, just to follow on from the skills question, what skills do we at the BBC, I suppose, need? What skills at the BBC do we already have, and what ones do we not need anymore?
Oh my gosh, what do you mean not need anymore?
No, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
So I'm not sure. I'm probably going to go near that one. I suppose my mantra, thinking from a technology point of view, and it is quite opinionated, thinking about technology and media operations, is we have brilliant people. My worry is that community will become smaller, and I think it has become smaller as an industry. Some of that's to do with, people moving on and people retiring and all of that stuff, and other types of career becoming more attractive. So I'm going to go off. So it's more a cherish architecture, people who know how stuff hangs together. It's quite hard to do that, as I'm sure I was talking to Andy earlier about this. Knowing the BBC in itself is quite tricky because it's big and it's complicated. So we need to help others wayfind as they start to plug things together. I think, it's our frontline people. So in our media operations team, it's the camera folk, it's the folk driving desks, it's our colleagues in MCR, it's all sorts of skills that probably aren't known, actually. If you're a young, wean coming out of school or uni, we need to help people understand that these jobs exist and that that's a career path, because we're facing into big digitals hoovering people up into software engineering. I'm just saying there's room for both, and we should try and cherish that pipeline of both types of skills.
One more?
My question is about how you and your team manage the careful balance between spending money wisely, and I'm not after a political answer, and buying the best technical solutions.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a matter of choices. We do risk manage, so we always start with the fact that the telly's still got to go out. We've still got to pump into product and make sure that everything is there. So we look at our capital expenditure very rigorously. We have a really strict process about how we prioritise our investments, and we think about how do we protect and how do we sustain and how do we transform, and we sort of measure across that graphic equalizer. And there's a bit of a skill to this. We were lucky to secure some money to really invest in our media supply chain tooling, which is everything you've seen up there as Target 27. And that does two things. That enables a lot of what we're investing in to continue to protect, to continue to deliver the brilliant standards that we manage to achieve day in and day out. But it segments some investment on the side to ensure that we can innovate. And that's why I was really keen to show you stuff that we've actually literally built that's very much focused on the future and not the today. It's less of the investment, but we're lucky that we've got some brilliant people who are helping to stitch cloud solutions and, really adopt sort of cloudy applications so that we can do all of this. But it is a balance. I think that's one of the tensions of technology leadership. But there's also a skills and a joy issue. Teams want to make things that are useful, that are audience serving, that are forward facing. So actually, arguably, it's easier to inspire people around that stuff.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. One more? Anybody else?
Yeah, nearly on time.
There's one more over here.
Put my phone back on.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sinead, for the talk. My question is about BBC. You've spoken about BBC. What do you mean by BBC? So, for example, we all know there's different arms to the BBC. There's a commercial side. There's the international news side. So for the work you're doing for Target 27, does it cross all those departments and those areas of the business?
That's a good question. It does, actually. So look, fair enough. It's very hard to navigate the BBC from the outside. And you're right, we have BBC Public Service and we have BBC Studios and we have imprints all around that. We serve in the UK, we serve ex-UK. The tools we have, so I talked about serving two things. Tools for our colleagues are universal. They're for everybody. So our drive to being able to do a day's work on the internet and unlocking the sort of constraints of things like a Wreath network are supercharging into giving people in-tune laptops that are, we can fire up at home. There are tons of solutions that sit in that sort of end-user network infrastructure space that are for all. And everything we do to protect our colleagues, all the tools, I can see my colleague Anna down the back, all the corporate tools that we give people are for all. In terms of Target 27, the other part of it is quite opinionated around media supply chain, but that equally, we have a huge track that's thinking about new solutions, and then we have a huge amount of work that's thinking about how television and audio solutions come together. All of those tracks then work with our digital product colleagues because there's a handshake. We provide the AV, and lots of the metadata that they need to serve audiences. And the library's access to all. So the library serves both public service and studios colleagues because some of that is rich content that we've acquired over the years that we want to get in front of audiences as much as possible. But it's also the source of a lot of content that our studios colleagues can then sell ex-UK. So it's a bit of a Venn diagram, but our intent, everything we invest in public service, we would want to propagate as far as wide as possible. Okay.
Very good. Okay, should we call it a day there? Thank you so much, Sinead. Round of applause, please.
Thank you.
And I should just say thanks to Sinead for supporting SMPTE and for the BBC more generally supporting SMPTE, and also the IBC accelerators, because there's some great innovation happening there. And we have an IBC accelerator demo through those doors in the coffee room. Join us for coffee. Are you going to stick around for questions? Yeah. Great. And we've got 2 days worth of SMPTE conference here, so be sure to come back. We've got lots of interesting things. Thanks, everybody.
Perfect.